Reactive training systems.
I think one of the things that Brittany and I kind of meshed on was a lot of a lot of the psychological and communication and a lot of that kind of stuff. And as much as, we did make programming, and I bet the programming that we're doing and that we've done looked a lot different than what she was doing with her previous coach. I think one of the biggest things we had success with was just keeping her in a mindset where she's able to kind of commit herself to her training, and where she's able to have a little bit more belief in herself, and reasonable but generally positive expectations for the outcomes of training. To work with her in terms of her, emotional state around lifting and good days and bad days, and just trying to help her feel heard and validated in a lot of ways, I think has been, as again, obviously the programming's working, but I think a lot of the bigger victories, I would say, have come from that kind of stuff. And I think that's part of what's allowed us to continue to make this kind of progress meet to meet. And to have her able to do, so for example, her deadlifts at Sheffield, we knew going in that she had this big pull and that nobody expected it. Nobody saw it coming. I think her previous best was it was 257. So, and that was, I think, maybe a pretty limit lift in Malta. It was like, I don't know, was her grip gonna hold? That was everything we had that day. And I knew going in that we were gonna put 10 plus or more on that deadlift. But she missed her opener. And I think so did Sunita, actually. So it was interesting to see that happen on both sides. But it was one of those things where she kind of got a little off balance, or maybe it moved a little faster than she hoped, and she kind of bobbled it. And I think previously, and this is a testament to her, I think, more than anything, but I think previously that would have been that might have been it. That might have set things in a course where we would have a hard time recovering from. But to her credit, she just very kind of stoically was like, "Are we still good? Like, why did I miss, why did I miss that? Was that am I not strong, or did I just kind of mess it up?" And I was like, "You're fine. We're gonna go up. You're gonna go out there and it's gonna feel way better." And she, did exactly that. But I think that ability for her to stay in, the place that she needed to be mentally was one of the reasons she was able to turn around on those deadlifts and kind of come back and do what she did. Um, she gives me shit all the time because we pulled 267, and I think 1 more kilo would have been the world record deadlift on top of everything else. But I was like, "You said the goal was the total, so that's we missed the first one. This is already a 10 kilo PR. We're not taking too many chances here." But that's been kind of a running joke. The 1 kilo.
That reminds me, on a psychological aspect, something that Ross mentions on our team a lot is that if you take care of the person will take care of the athlete.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, I don't know. I think a lot of the clients that I end up having success with, I do think a lot of it comes from that, and from, being able to have a collaborative process and to make the athletes feel like they're heard. And, I just think that stuff can't possibly be understated. Because anytime I do an intake interview with a lifter who's had any kind of negative experience with any coach in the past, it's almost always a lack of communication, not feeling heard, having their objections and questions kind of tossed to the side, those kinds of things. And I feel like, I don't know, the programming and all that kind of more objective stuff that's a little more on the logical and numbers side of things. I feel like a lot of that is almost easier to kind of get into place, because you have a bit more freedom in some cases with an athlete if you have a bad block. But you're in there with in the trenches with them, and you're like, "You know what, I'm seeing this too. I get that you're frustrated. I'm frustrated too, because I want you to be making this progress, and we're going to figure this out. And, I've been on the athlete side of that too with Mike, and being like, man, like, we're going to figure this bench out. Like, one of these days, trust me, man. And, we have. And I think just having that reassurance from your coach that, like, it's not just you as an athlete. It's not like I'm messing up. It's like, no, we're in this process together. We are going to figure it out. And if we are not getting the results that we want, that's on us, and just, I think giving that little bit of support, yeah, gives a lot more freedom and a lot more open communication to help get the numbers and the sets and the volume and the stimulus and recovery and all that kind of stuff figured out over time.
That's true. I really like that we're talking about this because there are many ways where a programming can go right. So I think we really underestimate sometimes the importance of collaborating and also the effect that a coach can have on an athlete. But with Brittany, recently I also saw that she's really open about the struggles that she's facing, since she's also facing a lot of hate on the internet, which is
Mm.
very frustrating to see because there's nothing like you can really do about it. But she has to face it. She has to deal with it in a certain way. So you can help her with that. But how do you give her space to open up about it? Because sometimes we have athletes that are just not talking about their struggles, and we don't really know like if they're dealing with something and how we can get them to open up and just talk a bit more about the psychological aspects of training.
Yeah. I think with Brittany and I, it was probably a year or so before she, I don't know, felt comfortable or felt like it was necessary or relevant to tell me about any of that more side of things. Um, and I think on my part, the biggest thing was just trying to, like, anytime she did even kind of like open up slightly about something like that, just to be as supportive as possible. And, thank you for sharing. Here are my thoughts, opinions, whatever. And I think in the case of other situations and maybe things that are a little more getting to the outside or are outside of our scope of practice as coaches, I think just like checking in to make sure that the athlete has some kind of support, whether they're doing, whatever form of therapy or, anything like that. Even if it's just family and friends, like, do you have people that you can lean on? You don't have to tell me anything. That's fine. But, like, do you have people that you can lean on, and do you have support? And if not, can I help you find some? Can we look together, and then you can go do whatever it is you need to do? Because, yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, like, I make no pretenses about, getting into the nitty-gritty of any of those things, with any of my lifters, because I think that's definitely outside my scope of practice. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but when it comes to how those things impact your perception of yourself as an athlete or your athletic performance or whatever, it's like, okay, we can open up a little more about that kind of stuff, and I can apply some of the sports psychology things that I've picked up over the years. But I think being able to draw that line and distinction and be like, I can't be a therapist for you. I will be a supportive, like, friend in some ways. And I will definitely, apply any lessons or help you in any way I can as it pertains to, specifically athletic performance. But yeah, just making sure that the athlete feels comfortable with you and that you're, going to validate what they say. And just, like, you know, let them not feel like they're doing something wrong for feeling a certain way, or that it's like odd or weird or the wrong reaction or something. Just kind of like letting people feel their feels, I think, in a lot of cases is enough to make people feel a lot better.
Hey, let me tell you something that I know about you. Your lifting is important to you. It's probably one of your biggest priorities. And for people like us, nothing compares to the feeling that you get when you set a new PR. That feeling of being the best that you've ever been, of doing something that you've never done before. This is what we're all after, and it's also what RTS specializes in. Getting you the absolute best program possible so that you can hit new PRs and reach your goals. We call it radically individualized training, and we're really good at it. Whether we need to account for busy schedules or equipment limitations, or precisely turn the dials and get the details of the program just right, we have the tools and the experience to guide your lifting to the next level. To us, coaching is all about leadership, relationship, and creative problem solving. A coach should be poised to help you make tough decisions about training and competing so that you can continually grow in your development. And of course, a coach should be a first-rate problem solver, especially when it comes to your training, technique, and strategy. Now, all this has to be built off of a really strong, professional coaching relationship that emphasizes trust and respect. Additionally, RTS coaches are not on an island. We have a strong network of professionals to reach out to, so if you find yourself in need of some specific expertise, say in the realm of nutrition or injury management or sports psychology, there's a deep expertise available there too. For more information, go to store.reactivetrainingsystems.com and click on coaching. That's store.reactivetrainingsystems.com, then click on coaching. Hope to see you on the team soon.